Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku became the legend of UA? Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The scent of Dagoba Municipal Beach Park was no longer that of rotting garbage, salt-rusted metal, and neglect. Now, it smelled only of the ocean, crisp, brine-heavy, and unforgiving. The sun was beginning to bleed over the horizon, casting long, jagged shadows across the pristine sand. Izuku Midoriya lay flat on his back, his chest heaving like a bellows. Steam, faint and white, curled off his skin, vanishing into the morning chill. Every muscle fiber in his body felt as though it had been pulled apart and reknit with steel wire. Get up. The voice was raspy, short, and carried the weight of a cane striking bone. Izuku didn't groan. He didn't complain. He simply rolled, planting his palms into the sand, and pushed himself upright. His green tracksuit was torn at the shoulder, stained with sweat and grime. Standing 10 feet away was a diminutively elderly man in a white cape and a yellow suit that had seen better decades. Next to him stood a towering, skeletal figure with hollow eyes and wild blonde hair. He's at his limit, Torino, All Might, in his true, deflated form, whispered, wringing his hands. The exam is in 3 hours. If we push him any harder, he'll be too exhausted to perform. Gran Torino snorted, a sound like tearing paper. The boy spent 10 months eating sand and vomiting weakness, Toshinori. If he can't handle a morning spar, he has no business inheriting that power. The old hero's eyes, sharp as razors, locked onto Izuku. Midoriya. What is the quirk? Izuku steadied his breathing. He closed his eyes, visualizing the sensation. In the beginning, months ago, he had imagined the power as an egg in a microwave, something volatile, waiting to explode if he didn't contain it. It had been a stupid metaphor. It implied the power was something separate from him, something to be caged. Torino had beaten that metaphor out of him in week 4. It's not an egg, Izuku thought. It's a river. It's the blood in my veins. It's the air in my lungs. It doesn't sit in one place. It flows. It's a whole body function, Izuku rasped, opening his eyes. Green electricity began to crackle around his shoes, then his knees, climbing his torso, wreathing his shoulders. It wasn't the violent, erratic discharge of a novice. It was a hum. A steady, controlled frequency. 5%, Izuku muttered. Full cowling. Show me 10, Torino commanded. Izuku gritted his teeth. The hum grew louder. The green lightning intensified, the arcs snapping aggressively against the air. His veins pulsed, glowing faintly beneath the skin. The pressure was immense, a physical weight pressing down on his bones, demanding release. Hold it, Torino barked. Don't release it. Circulate it. If you release it, you break. If you hold it, you become the weapon. Izuku held it. The sand around his feet began to displace, pushed away by sheer wind pressure radiating from his stance. He looked at the pile of tires stacked 50 yards away. Go. Izuku didn't run. He vanished. To the naked eye of an average civilian, he was a blur. To All Might, he was a beam of green light. Izuku kicked off the sand, the ground cratering beneath his sneaker. He wasn't just using strength. He was using vectors, bouncing his momentum. He hit the seawall, rebounded, spun in midair to generate centrifugal force, and slammed his heel into the tire stack. Boom! Rubber shredded. The stack didn't just fall over, it disintegrated, pieces of tire scattering like shrapnel. Izuku landed in the center of the debris, the green lightning fading instantly as he exhaled. He checked his fingers. No breaks. He checked his legs. No fractures. All Might let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for 10 months. Oh my goodness. Gran Torino hopped forward, leaning on his cane. He inspected the destruction, then looked up at Izuku. The old man didn't smile. He rarely did, but the scowl softened by a fraction of a millimeter. Sloppy on the landing, Torino criticized. You wasted energy braking. You should have rolled through the momentum. Yes, sir, Izuku said, straightening up and bowing. But Torino added, turning away, you stop trying to imitate this idiot. He gestured to All Might, and started moving like yourself. That'll do. All Might transformed, puffing into his muscle form in a cloud of steam. A massive hand clamped onto Izuku's shoulder. Young Midoriya, you have truly exceeded my expectations. To think, you have not only cleaned this beach but mastered the basics of one for all before setting foot in UA. Izuku looked at his hand. It was scarred, calloused, and rough. It wasn't the hand of a fanboy anymore. I'm not done yet, Izuku said quietly. He looked up, his emerald eyes burning with a terrifying intensity. I don't just want to pass, All Might. I have to be undeniable. I have to be the kind of hero who doesn't make people worry. All Might paused, his eternal smile faltering just for a second into an expression of profound seriousness. Then go. Go and show them the fruits of your hellish 10 months. The gates of UA High School were towering barriers of steel and glass, designed to intimidate. As thousands of students swarmed toward the entrance, the air was thick with anxiety, nervous muttering, shaking hands, frantic last-minute studying. It was a cacophony of insecurity. Izuku Midoriya walked through the crowd, and for the first time in his life, he felt silent. The silence wasn't external. The noise around him was deafening. The silence was internal. The frantic voice in his head that usually screamed, I'm not good enough, everyone is staring, look down, hide, was gone. In its place was a calm, analytical monologue, cataloging potential quirks based on the physical mutations of the students around him. Heteromorphic type on the left, likely strength enhanced. Emitter type on the right, fingers are calloused, possibly heat-based. Out of my way, Deku. The voice was a growl, low and dangerous. Katsuki Bakugo stood behind him, hands in his pockets, his posture slouching but aggressive. His red eyes narrowed, expecting the flinch. He expected the stammer. He expected the old Izuku. Izuku stopped and turned. He didn't hunch his shoulders. He looked Bakugo in the eye. Good morning, Kaken, Izuku said. His voice was even. Ready for the practical? Bakugo blinked. The reaction was wrong. The script was broken. Ha! Don't look down on me, you quirkless pebble. I'm going to crush this exam and leave you in the dust where you belong. Izuku shifted his bag strap. We'll see. He turned and kept walking. Bakugo stood frozen for a moment, confused rage bubbling in his chest. We'll see? What the hell did that mean? Since when did the pebble have the spine to talk back? Izuku continued forward, his mind already moving past the encounter. He was too focused to be afraid of Bakugo. Gran Torino was scarier. Gran Torino moving at Mach speeds with a cane aimed at your kidneys was fear. Bakugo was just loud. Lost in thought, Izuku's foot caught the edge of a slightly uneven paving stone. Gravity took hold. Mistake, his mind snapped. Correction required. Before he could hit the ground, he felt a touch on his backpack, lightening his gravity. But Izuku had already reacted. He had twisted his torso, prepared to handspring out of the fall. The combined effect of his reflex and the zero-gravity touch sent him floating awkwardly, rotating in the air like a slow-motion gymnast. Whoa! A girl with a round face and brown bobbed hair giggled, tapping her fingertips together to release him. Izuku landed lightly on the balls of his feet. Are you okay? She asked, smiling brightly. It's bad luck to trip, right? I'm Uraraka Ochako. Izuku straightened his blazer. Midoriya Izuku. And thank you? That was... zero gravity? Yeah. She beamed. I'm so nervous. Aren't you? Izuku looked at the massive building. I'm anxious, he admitted. But mostly, I just want to start. Wow, you're calm, she said. Well, good luck. She waved and ran off. Izuku watched her go. 5 pads on fingertips. Contact activation. Likely nausea-inducing if overused due to inner ear equilibrium disruption. Good for rescue and mobility. He took a deep breath and stepped into the hall. The written exam was a non-issue. Izuku had spent years analyzing hero laws, physics, and quirk theory. While others chewed their pencils over the ethics of collateral damage, Izuku wrote essays citing legal precedents from the vigilante era. Then came the orientation. The auditorium was dark, lit only by the spotlight on the eccentric voice hero, Present Mike. Everybody say hey. Silence. Izuku sat in the middle rows, his notebook out, sketching the layout of the battle centers based on the limited schematic displayed on the screen. Tough crowd, tough crowd. Mike shrugged. All right, examinees. We're looking at a 10-minute mock urban battle. You'll be dropped into different battle centers to shred some faux villains. As Mike explained the point values, 1p, 2p, 3p, Izuku's pen moved rapidly. Robots. Not human opponents. That means lethal force isn't prohibited, but structural damage needs to be minimized to avoid deductions, though they didn't mention deductions. Speed is key. The high pointers will be durable. Joints and sensors are the weak points. Excuse me. May I ask a question? A tall boy with glasses and blue hair stood up, his hand raised rigidly. The spotlight shifted to him. Tenya Ida, there appear to be 4 types of villains on the handout, yet you only discussed 3. If this is a printing error, you should be ashamed. He turned, pointing a stiff finger directly at Izuku. And you, the one with the curly hair. Izuku looked up, blinking. You've been muttering this entire time. It's distracting. If you're here on a sightseeing trip, you should leave immediately. The auditorium chuckled. The tension of the exam found a release valve, and mocking the muttering kid, Izuku didn't shrink. He felt the heat in his cheeks, yes, but he stood up. I apologize for the noise, Izuku said, his voice carrying clearly without a microphone. He held up his notebook. I was calculating the probable armor density of the 3 pointers based on the silhouette shown. If they are based on standard heavy construction mechs, the neck joints are the only vulnerability for anyone without a strength enhancer quirk. I was just preparing. The laughter died instantly. Ida stared, his mouth slightly open. He pushed his glasses up his nose. I see. You were analyzing the enemy. I apologize for my presumption. He bowed stiffly and sat down. Present Mike whistled. All right. Calm down, listeners. The 4th robot is a 0-pointer. It's a gimmick. An obstacle. Think of it like a natural disaster. There's no points in fighting it, so if you see it, run. Plus Ultra. Battle Center B. The mock city was enormous. Skyscrapers of concrete and glass loomed over narrow streets. A crowd of students stood before the massive gates, stretching, shivering, and psyching themselves up. Izuku stood at the front, right against the gate line. He wore a simple teal tracksuit. He tightened his red shoes. Ida approached him. You. The one from the auditorium, Midoriya, Izuku supplied, not looking away from the gate. Midoriya. You seem strangely composed. Did you figure out something about the test structure that I missed? It's not a test, Izuku said softly. What? It's a crisis simulation, Izuku said. In a crisis there is no countdown. At that exact moment, from the tower high above, President Mick's voice boomed, not counting down, but shouting, Start! The other students hesitated. They looked at each other, confused. Start? Where's the 3, 2, 1? Izuku was already gone. He didn't run. He exploded forward. One for all flooded his legs at 8%, a manageable threshold he could sustain for minutes. Green sparks trailed behind him like the afterburn of a comet. By the time the other students processed the command, Izuku was 50 meters into the city. What are you waiting for? Mike screamed over the speakers. There are no countdowns in real battles. Follow that kid. The mob surged forward, panic setting in. Inside the city, the first mechanical whirring began. A 3-pointer, a massive green tank-treaded robot with terrifying metal arms, smashed through a storefront. Target acquired, the machine droned. Izuku didn't slow down. He sprinted directly at it. Analysis, heavy plating. Slow rotation speed. Exposed hydraulic line under the chin. Izuku jumped. He didn't vault. He launched himself like a missile. He grabbed the robot's protruding sensor array, swung his body weight around using the momentum, and drove his heel directly into the robot's neck joint. Smash! Metal sheared. The head of the robot was ripped clean off its chassis in a shower of sparks and oil. The massive machine slumped instantly. Izuku landed in a crouch, scanned the area, and was moving again before the robot hit the ground. 3 points. He turned a corner. 2 1-pointers fast, wheel-based and a 2-pointer scorpion-like. Izuku took a breath, channeling the power through his arms this time. He grabbed a detached piece of rebar from the rubble of the first robot. He threw it. The metal rod flew like a javelin, impaling the first one-pointer through its central eye. 4 points. He closed the distance to the second one-pointer, sliding under its lunge and uppercutting its chassis. The metal buckled. 5 points. The two-pointer lashed out with a tail. Izuku hopped backward, the tail missing his nose by an inch. He grabbed the tail, planted his feet, and pulled. The robot was yanked off balance. Izuku spun, slamming the robot into a concrete wall. 7 points. He was barely sweating. The observation room. A wall of monitors displayed the chaos of 7 different battle centers. The teachers of UA sat in the darkened room, observing the crop of hopefuls. This year has a high operational tempo, Midnight noted, licking her lips. Look at the aggression. Some are focusing on quantity, Snipe pointed out, watching a boy with explosions Bakugo tear through robots. Others on defense. But then, Aizawa Shota, the Erasure hero, murmured, his eyes fixed on a single screen in Battle Center B. There is this anomaly. On the screen, a blur of green lightning was ricocheting off the walls of an alleyway. Izuku Midoriya was fighting 3 robots simultaneously. He wasn't just destroying them, he was using them. He kicked a one-pointer into the path of a 3-pointer's missile, using the enemy as a shield. He fights like a veteran, Vlad King grunted. No wasted movement. High situational awareness. Is his quirk speed? Or strength? It's power accumulation, All Might whispered from the back of the room, though he tried to make it sound casual. Or so it seems. He has 45 points already, Nizu, the principal, noted, sipping tea. And we are only 5 minutes in. He's eclipsing the others in his zone. Look! On the screen, Uraraka and Ida were struggling to find targets because Izuku was clearing the streets faster than the robots could deploy. He's efficient, Aizawa admitted, though his tone was hard. But a hero isn't just about efficiency. Let's see how he handles the inevitable. Nizu smiled. His paw hovered over a large red button. The true test begins now. Click. Battle Center B. Izuku stood atop a pile of scrap metal that used to be a squadron of 2-pointers. He wiped a smudge of oil from his cheek. 58 points, he calculated. That should be enough to pass, assuming the cutoff is similar to previous years. But to be safe, I need 60. He prepared to move to the next block when the ground jumped. It wasn't a vibration. It was an earthquake. Buildings groaned. Windows shattered from the sheer frequency of the bass. Dust rose in a choking cloud at the north end of the main street. The students froze. From the dust, a hand the size of a house slammed into the pavement. Then another. The 0-pointer rose. It was colossal, taller than the skyscrapers surrounding it. Its red eyes swept over the city like searchlights from hell. It moved forward, and the street simply ceased to exist. It plowed through concrete and steel as if they were cardboard. It's huge! A student screamed. Run! Run for your lives! The psychology of the exam flipped instantly. The hunters became the prey. The chaotic scramble for points turned into a stampede for survival. Students turned and fled, pushing past each other, terror overriding their ambition. Izuku stood his ground, the wind from the robot's movement whipping his curly hair back. 0 points. An obstacle. No value in fighting it. The logical move is to retreat. He turned to run. That was the plan. That was the smart play. Ow! The sound was faint, buried under the grinding of gears and the screams of the crowd, but Izuku heard it. He stopped. He looked back. In the middle of the decimated street, Ochako Uraraka was trapped. A piece of falling masonry had pinned her leg. She was struggling to lift it, her face twisted in pain. The 0-pointer was looming over her. A massive metal tread was descending, seconds away from crushing the area where she lay. Izuku's mind went blank. The analysis stopped. The point tally vanished. The fear evaporated. There was no thought of can I do this? Or what if I die? There was only the image of a person in need, and the absolute refusal to let them get hurt. Izuku moved. One for all. He screamed the name in his heart. He didn't regulate to 5%. He didn't cap it at 10%. He reached deep, grabbing as much of the power as his body could hold without exploding. 15%. 20%. Pain flared in his legs, his muscles tearing microscopically under the strain, but he ignored it. He launched himself forward. The concrete beneath him didn't just crack, it pulverized. A sonic boom erupted in his wake. He was a green streak of light cutting through the dust. He reached the fallen debris trapping Uraraka. He didn't waste time lifting it. He grabbed the collar of her jacket and yanked, ripping her free just as a smaller piece of debris slammed down where her head had been. But the foot was still coming down. The shadow engulfed them. He couldn't run out of the radius in time. Not with her. If you can't dodge, break the threat. Izuku looked up. The massive face of the zero-pointer stared down. Hold on tight. Izuku roared at Uraraka. She clung to him, eyes wide with terror. Izuku bent his knees. The green lightning turned blindingly white. He focused everything into his legs. Gran Torino Lesson 4. Air is solid if you hit it hard enough. He jumped. He rocketed upward, carrying Uraraka with him. The G-force nearly blacked them both out. He soared past the falling foot, past the robot's knees, past the torso. He was flying. He reached the altitude of the robot's head. He released Uraraka gently, tossing her upwards so she would float momentarily at the apex of the jump. Stay there! Izuku spun in the air. He clenched his right fist. He could feel All Might's phantom presence beside him, and Gran Torino's cane poking his back. Don't just punch. Drive through. The robot lunged at him. Izuku swung. Detroit. Smash. He didn't use 100%. That would shatter his arm. He used the precision-focused 25% impact directly into the central processor unit of the robot's face. The impact was deafening. The air pressure alone shattered the windows of the surrounding buildings for 3 blocks. The metal face of the zero-pointer crumpled inward like a crushed soda can. The shockwave traveled down the robot's neck, blowing out its internal hydraulics. The massive machine groaned, tilted backward, and then began to fall. Izuku was falling too. His right arm was purple, throbbing violently, but not broken. His muscles were screaming in agony. The ground was rushing up. Uraraka. She was falling near him, flailing. She slapped herself in the face. Release. She floated, grabbing Izuku's uninjured arm. Her quirk negated their velocity for a split second, but the strain made her turn green. She was about to vomit. I got it! Izuku shouted. He grabbed her waist, twisted his body to face the ground, and fired a blast of wind pressure with a flick of his fingers, Delaware Smash style, but using his whole hand to cushion the blow. The air pressure slowed their descent. They hit the ground rolling. Izuku took the brunt of the impact, shielding her with his body, skidding across the pavement until they slammed into a concrete barrier. Silence returned to Battle Center B. The dust settled. The zero-pointer lay destroyed, a smoking mountain of scrap metal. Izuku lay on his back, groaning. His arm felt like it was on fire. His legs felt like jelly. Time's up! Present Mike screamed. The siren wailed. Izuku stared at the sky. I did it. I saved her. He tried to sit up, but his body refused. Are you alive? Uraraka's voice trembled. She was hovering over him, tears in her eyes. I'm fine, Izuku wheezed, forcing a smile that was more of a grimace. Just a little tired. A crowd began to form. The other students crept out of the alleys, staring at the fallen robot, and then at the boy lying in the rubble. Did he just one-shot the zero-pointer? He jumped like 50 meters in the air. Who is that guy? Ida Tenya walked to the front of the crowd. He looked at the robot, then at Izuku. His hands were clenched at his sides. He moved to save her while I ran away. I thought I was being rational, but he was being a hero. Recovery girl arrived minutes later, pushing through the stunned students. All right, make way. Let me see the damage. She looked down at Izuku. She expected shattered limbs. She saw bruising, muscle tears, and exhaustion. Humph, she grunted, kissing his forehead. You pushed yourself to the brink, Sonny. But nothing is broken. You've got sturdy bones. Izuku felt the stamina drain as her quirk activated. The world went dark. 1 week later, the Midoriya apartment was quiet. Inko Midoriya was pacing in the kitchen, radiating enough nervous energy to power a small city. Izuku sat at his desk, staring at a dumbbell. He hadn't heard anything. He had replayed the exam in his head 1,000 times. I got 58 combat points. That's decent. But I destroyed the 0-pointer. That's 0 points. Did I waste my energy? Did I fail because I showed off? The mailbox clattered. Inko screamed. Izuku! It's here! She slid into his room on her knees, holding the envelope like it was a bomb. Yue! It's from Yue! Izuku took it. His hands didn't shake. He walked to his desk, sat down, and slit the envelope open with a letter opener. A metal disc fell out. A hologram sprang to life. I am here! All Might filled the projection, wearing a yellow suit that clashed horribly with the background. As a projection, Izuku leaned forward. Young Midoriya! All Might's voice boomed. You have waited long. But the results are in. First, the written exam. You passed with flying colors. A solid score, Izuku nodded. Expected. Now, the practical. You scored 58 villain points. A respectable number. On its own, this would be enough to pass, Izuku exhaled. I passed. But... All Might shouted, leaning into the camera. That is not the whole story. A hero course that rejects those who save others is no hero course at all. What kind of hero ignores a person in danger to chase a score? The video cut away. It showed the clip of Izuku turning back. It showed him launching himself at the 0-pointer. It showed Uraraka's face. This young lady came to us directly, All Might said. A clip played of Uraraka pleading with present Might to give her points to Izuku. You don't need her points, young Midoriya. All Might declared. Because the hero course also looks at rescue points. A scoreboard appeared. Izuku Midoriya, villain points 58, rescue points 60, total 118. Izuku's eyes widened. 60 points for a single act of supreme heroism. All Might shouted. You risked your standing, your body, and your future to save one person. That is the essence of a hero. The chart zoomed out. Izuku's name was at the very top of the list. Bakugo was second with 77. The gap was massive. You didn't just pass, Izuku, All Might said, his voice dropping to a proud, warm tone. You broke the record. Come, young Midoriya. This is your hero academia. The hologram faded. Izuku sat in the silence. He looked at his hand, the hand that had smashed a giant robot. He didn't cry. The old Izuku would have flooded the apartment. Instead, Izuku Midoriya smiled. It was a sharp, confident smile. He clenched his fist. I'm just getting started. Yue High School Teacher's Lounge. Aizawa Shoto stared at the file on his desk. The picture attached showed a boy with green hair and freckles. 118 points, Aizawa muttered. He beat All Might's record. He's a problem child, Midnight teased, looking over his shoulder. Or a prodigy. He's dangerous, Aizawa corrected. He has power, he has intellect, and he has zero hesitation. If we don't teach him control, he'll get himself killed trying to save the world in a day. Aizawa stood up, picking up his sleeping bag. A rare, predatory grin crossed his face. This year might actually be interesting. The subway car rattled rhythmically against the tracks, a metallic heartbeat that usually lulled commuters into a morning doze. Today, however, the atmosphere was electric, buzzing with the hushed, frantic energy of the first day of school. Izuku Midoriya stood near the doors, his hand resting lightly on the grab loop. He wasn't holding it for balance. His stance was rooted, his center of gravity dropped instinctively, a habit beaten into him by a cane wielded by a geriatric speedster. He wore the gray blazer of Yue High, the fabric stiff and new, smelling of starch and expectation. It felt heavy, but not in the way a burden does. It felt like armor. Did you see the news forums? A girl in a middle school uniform whispered to her friend a few feet away. She held her phone up, the screen glowing with a grainy image of a green blur decapitating a giant robot. Yeah, the green myth, her friend replied, eyes wide. They say he took down the 0-pointer in one hit. One hit? Do you think he's a third year? No, the thread says he was an examinee. A first year. Can you imagine? Being in class with a monster like that? Izuku didn't flinch. He didn't blush or stammer or try to hide his face in his collar. He stared at his reflection in the darkened subway window. The boy looking back wasn't the timid, quirkless Deku who flinched at loud noises. His eyes were sharper, framed by the lingering exhaustion of a training regimen that would have killed a professional athlete. He flexed his right hand, watching the tendons shift. One for all is quiet today, he noted internally. The hum is settling at 3% just existing. Good. Gran Torino said the goal is to make the power as natural as breathing. The train screeched to a halt at the Musutifu station. The doors hissed open. Izuku stepped out, moving with a fluid grace that parted the sea of commuters. He didn't rush. He walked with purpose. The walk to UA was a gauntlet. Reporters were already camped out near the barrier, hungry for a quote from All Might or a glimpse of the mysterious top scorer. Izuku pulled his hood up slightly, not out of fear, but tactical avoidance, and slipped through a gap in the press line before a camera could focus on him. He reached the massive, towering gate of UA High. The H shape of the building loomed against the blue sky, a monument to superhuman society. Step 1 complete, Izuku thought, checking his watch. Arrived 15 minutes early. Time to assess the terrain. The door to Class 1A was enormous. It was designed that way, Izuku analyzed, to accommodate heteromorphic quirks of varying sizes, but psychologically it served another purpose. It made you feel small before you even entered. Izuku reached for the handle. He paused. He could hear voices inside. Remove your foot from the desk. Such an action is an insult to the upperclassmen who used it before us and the craftsmen who built it. Ha! Like I care about some old desk. What junior high are you from, you four-eyed extra? Izuku sighed. Some things never change. He slid the door open. The noise in the room cut off instantly. It wasn't a gradual silence. It was a vacuum. 20 pairs of eyes snapped toward the door. Tenya Ida, standing stiffly by Bakugo's desk, froze in mid-gesture. Katsuki Bakugo, leaning back with his feet up, stopped sneering. His red eyes locked onto Izuku, the pupils contracting into pinpricks of raw, confused aggression. Izuku stepped into the room. The air felt pressurized. He could feel the weight of their stares, some curious, some intimidated, some calculating. It's him, a boy with yellow hair and a black lightning bolt streak whispered. The 118-point guy. He looks normal, a girl with earphone jacks noted, sounding disappointed. Ida marched toward him, his movements robotic and intense. Good morning. I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy. I know, Izuku said calmly, nodding. We met at the exam. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Ida stopped a few feet away, looking down at Izuku with a mixture of shame and respect. Midoriya. I must apologize. During the entrance exam, I misjudged you. I thought you were merely muttering to distract us, but you had perceived the true nature of the test, the rescue component. I was blind to it. You were the superior candidate. It wasn't about being superior, Izuku replied, walking past Ida toward a free seat behind Bakugo. It was about reacting to the situation. You followed the rules. I followed the objective. There's a difference. Ida blinked, processing the critique. I see. Izuku reached his desk. He felt the heat of Bakugo's glare on the side of his face. It was like standing next to an open oven. Deku, Bakugo growled. The name didn't sound like an insult anymore. It sounded like a question mark wrapped in barbed wire. What the hell kind of trick did you pull? Izuku set his bag down. He turned to face his childhood tormentor. For years, this moment would have induced a panic attack. Now, Izuku just saw bad posture and telegraphed anger. No trick, Kaken, Izuku said softly. I just finally caught up. Caught up? Bakugo's hands began to smoke, tiny pops of nitroglycerin snapping in the air. You think some lucky smash makes you my equal? I'll bury you, you damn nerd. You're loud. The voice came from the floor. The class jumped. Izuku didn't. He had sensed a presence in the hallway 30 seconds ago, a slow, shuffling gait and the sound of a zipper. Lying in the doorway, wrapped in a bright yellow sleeping bag like an exhausted caterpillar, was a man with messy black hair and eyes that looked like they hadn't closed in a week. He sucked on a jelly pouch, staring at the class with utter disinterest. It took you 8 seconds to shut up, the man deadpanned, unzipping the bag and standing up. He wore black clothes, a capture scarf, and an aura of overwhelming lethargy. That's not going to work. Time is a limited resource. You kids aren't rational enough. The class stared, stunned. A teacher? A homeless man? I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa, he mumbled, digging into his pocket. Put these on and meet me on the P grounds. He tossed the blue gym uniform at the front row student. Don't dawdle. The locker room was a chaos of boys changing and introducing themselves. Man, that teacher is intense, Eijiro Kurishima, a redhead with spiky hair, said as he pulled on his shirt. I wonder what we're doing. An orientation ceremony? I hope it's not a written test, Denki Kaminari groaned. Izuka changed silently in the corner. He pulled off his blazer and unbuttoned his white shirt. Whoa, dude, the chatter stopped. Kirishima was staring at Izuka's back. Izuka looked over his shoulder. What? Your back, Kirishima said, pointing. You look like you went through a meat grinder. Izuka looked down at his torso. He was lean, stripped of all excess fat, his muscles corded and dense, but covering his arms and shoulders were faint, web-like scars, fades from the early days of One for All, and bruises that were currently healing from Gran Torino's sparring sessions. There was a particularly nasty yellow-purple bruise on his ribs where All Might had accidentally clipped him during a capture exercise. Training accidents, Izuka said simply, pulling the blue gym shirt on. It fit him snugly, emphasizing the width of his shoulders. That's manly, Kirishima grinned, slamming a fist into his palm. I respect that. I'm Kirishima, by the way. Midoriya. Hey, Midoriya, Mineta, a small boy with great balls for hair, whispered loudly. Do you think the girls' locker room has a peephole? I mean, Yui is an old building, right? Architectural oversight? Izuka looked at Mineta. He channeled a fraction of the dad-might disappointment stare. If you try, you'll likely be expelled before you hit the floor. Aizawa-sensei doesn't seem like the type to tolerate liabilities. Mineta paled. Expelled? On the first day. Let's go, Izuka said, shutting his locker. He said don't dawdle. The P grounds were vast, an open expanse of dirt, and white lines under the harsh sun. The class lined up, shivering slightly in the cool spring breeze. Aizawa stood with his back to them, reading data from a tablet. A quirk apprehension test? The class shouted in unison. What about the entrance ceremony? The guidance counselor meeting? Uraraka asked, raising her hand. Aizawa turned slowly. His hair fell over his face, hiding his expression. If you want to be heroes, you don't have time for such leisurely events. UA's selling point is freedom style. That applies to the teachers as well. He tapped the tablet. Softball throw. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. Endurance running. Grip strength. Upper body training. Seated toe touch. Side steps. You did these in middle school, right? Without quirks. He looked up, his eyes dark. The country still insists on prohibiting quirks when calculating the average of physical records. It's irrational. The Ministry of Education is procrastinating. He pointed a finger at Bakugo. Bakugo. You finished first in the practical exam. In junior high, what was your best result for the softball throw? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Try it with your quirk, Aizawa said. Anything goes as long as you stay in the circle. Bakugo walked to the circle. He rolled his shoulders. A predatory grin spread across his face. I'll show them. I'll show that nerd the difference between a fluke and true power. Dai! Bakugo threw the ball, adding a massive explosion at the moment of release. The blast wave kicked up dust, and the ball rocketed into the sky, trailing smoke. Die! Izuka muttered. Aizawa held up his device. It beeped. He turned the screen to the class. 705.2 meters. Whoa! 700 meters? Kaminari shouted. We can use our quirks as much as we want? This is gonna be awesome. Mina Ashido cheered. Awesome. Aizawa repeated. The word hung in the air, heavy and cold. The class quieted down. You have 3 years here to become a hero, Aizawa said softly. Will you have an awesome time during natural disasters? Or when a villain is holding a hostage? Or when you're bleeding out in an alley? He grinned, a wide, terrifying expression that didn't reach his eyes. Right. If you think this is fun, let's add a rule. The student who ranks last in total points will be judged to have no potential. He swept his hair back, and will be instantly expelled. The silence was absolute. Huh? The class erupted. That's not fair. Uraraka protested. It's the first day. Even if it wasn't, that's too unreasonable. Natural disasters aren't fair, Aizawa countered, his voice bored. Villains aren't fair. The world is full of unfairness. Heroes are the ones who overturn that. If you wanted to hang out at a burger joint after school, you came to the wrong place. He put his hands in his pockets. Welcome to UA High's hero course. Izuku watched Aizawa closely. He was analyzing the threat level. Expulsion. Is it a bluff? UA has free reign. He expelled an entire class last year according to the forums. It's not a bluff. It's a stress test. He wants to see who breaks under pressure and who performs. Izuku clenched his fist. I won't be the one who breaks. Test 1, 50-meter dash. The students lined up in pairs. Ida Tenya versus Tsuyu Azuri. Ida revved his engines. Recipro burst is too much for this distance, but third gear should suffice. Start. Ida was a blue blur. 3.04 seconds. Tsuyu hopped along quickly. 5.58 seconds. Midoriya versus Bakugo. The robotic voice called them up. Bakugo walked to the line, vibrating with intensity. Izuku stepped up beside him, calm. Don't cry when you lose, Deku, Bakugo hissed. Ready. Izuku took a breath. Full cowling. 8%. Focus the torque in the calves. Explosive start. Green lightning crackled around his legs, tearing up the dirt slightly. Go! Bakugo launched himself backward with explosions, propelling himself forward. It was fast, incredibly fast, but Izuku didn't run. He skated. Using the power to reduce friction and maximize propulsion, Izuku moved like a skipping stone over water. He kept his body low, aerodynamic. They crossed the line almost simultaneously. Bakugo, 4.13 seconds. Midoriya, 4.15 seconds. Bakugo skid to a halt, panting. He looked at the time. He had won. But only by 0.02 seconds. Against a quirkless nobody. TCH. Bakugo spat. Barely beat me? Don't get cocky. Izuku stood up, brushing dust off his pants. He wasn't winded. You're fast, Kaken. Your blast propulsion is more efficient than my running stride over short distances. Aizawa marked the tablet, his eyes narrowing. He controlled the output perfectly. No damage to the legs. He's treating the quirk like a secondary muscle group. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku took the dynamometer. He squeezed. He didn't just use his hand. He visualized the power flowing from his shoulder, down the forearm, amplifying the contraction. Beep. 305 kilograms. Whoa! 540 kilograms. Sero shouted, looking at a massive boy with multiple arms. Shoji. You're a gorilla! Izuku looked at his own score. It wasn't superhuman in the way Shoji's was, but it was well above average. It was functional. Mineta struggled with the device. I can't even close it. Izuku leaned over. Mineta-kun, don't squeeze with just your fingers. Engage your latissimus dorsi muscles. Pull your shoulder back while you squeeze. It adds leverage. Mineta blinked. He tried it. The number jumped from 15 kilograms to 35 kilograms. Whoa! Thanks, Midoriya. Aizawa watched from the corner of his eye. He's advising others. He's not focused solely on his own survival. Test 3, standing long jump. Bakugo blasted across the sandbox, clearing it easily. Aoyama used his naval laser to propel himself backward, landing gracefully. Izuku stood at the line. 5%. Jump, he leaped. It wasn't an explosion, it was a casual hop. He cleared the sandbox by 10 meters, landing softly with a roll. Test 4, repeated side steps. Mineta was the king here, bouncing off his balls. Izuku used full cowling to shuttle back and forth, his shoes smoking from the friction, moving so fast he left afterimages. The interval. As the class moved to the softball field for the final and most crucial event, the tension was palpable. Several students were struggling. Hagakure Invisible Girl was panicking. I can't do pull-ups, she whispered frantically to Ojiro. And my sprint was average. I'm going to be expelled. Izuku walked past her. He didn't stop, but he spoke low enough for only her to hear. Hagakure-san? For the ball throw, don't throw it. You're invisible. Your body mechanics are hidden. Step past the line after the release, but during the wind-up, use the centrifugal force of a spin. They can't see your foot fault if you're fast enough, but more importantly, spinning adds 30% more velocity than a standard overhand for someone with your build. Hagakure's gloves froze. Huh? Really? Physics Izuku said. Trust your rotation. She did. She spun like a top, releasing the ball. It flew 45 meters, bad for a hero, but better than the 15 she would have gotten. Aizawa was writing on his tablet. Tactical advice based on quirk observation. Midoriya Izuku, you're making it very hard to find a reason to cut you. Test 5, the ball throw. This was the big one. The one where quirks could shine brightest. Uraraka stepped up. Infinite, she whispered, touching the ball. She threw it. It floated up, and up, and up. Aizawa showed the screen. Infinity symbol. I win! Uraraka cheered. The class went wild. That's insane. How can we beat infinity? Midoriya, Aizawa called. The chatter died. Izuku walked to the circle. He picked up the ball. It felt light. Bakugo watched him like a hawk. Do it, Deku. Break your arm again like you did with the robot. Show them you're a glass cannon. Izuku took a breath. Gran Torino said power comes from the toes. Up the legs. Into the hips. Rotate the torso. Snap the shoulder. Flick the finger. He wound up. The green lightning flared, bright and violent. The wind picked up around him. Smash! He threw his arm forward. The ball dropped. It rolled a pathetic 40 meters and stopped. The lightning had vanished the instant before release. Huh! Izuku stared at his hand. The power, it cut out. Why? He looked up. Standing 20 meters away, Aizawa's hair was floating straight up. His capture scarf was floating around him like serpentine coils. His eyes were glowing a piercing, bloodshot red. I erased your quirk, Aizawa said, his voice dry and scratching. The class gasped. Erased? Kirishima asked. Wait, those goggles, that scarf. You're the erasure hero. Eraserhead. Eraserhead? The class muttered. Never heard of him. An underground hero? Aizawa ignored them. He walked toward Izuku, closing the distance until he was right in the boy's face. That entrance exam was definitely not rational enough, Aizawa said. Even a kid like you was accepted. A kid like me? Izuku asked, holding his ground. I saw the footage, Aizawa said. You saved the girl, yes. But you did it with reckless abandon. You have a powerful quirk, but it's volatile. Rumor has it you can control it, yet just now, I felt you ramping up for a smash that would have dislocated your shoulder. This was a lie. Aizawa was testing him. He wanted to see if Izuku knew his own limits. You can't become a hero if you're a liability, Aizawa hissed. Just like All Might, you want to save everyone. But if you break yourself to save one person, who saves you? Who saves the next person while you're in the hospital? He leaned in, his red eyes boring into Izuku's soul. Izuku Midoriya. You cannot become a hero with that power. He blinked. His hair fell down. The pressure lifted. I've returned your quirk, Aizawa said, turning around and walking back to the line. You have one more throw. Hurry up and get it over with. Izuku stood alone in the circle. The class was whispering. He got told off. Is he gonna be okay? He looks pissed. Izuku wasn't pissed. He was calculating. He erased my quirk to see if I would panic. He thinks I rely on 100% output for big moves. He thinks I'm a glass cannon. Izuku looked at the ball. I don't need 100%. I don't even need 20%. He remembered Gran Torino's first lesson. Move the air, not the object. Izuku didn't wind up this time. He stood with his feet shoulder-width apart. He held the ball loosely in his right hand. He closed his eyes. Focus. One for all. Full cowling. 10%. The green lightning returned, but this time it was tighter, clinging to his skin like a second suit. The hum was high-pitched, like a dental drill. He's doing it again, Bakugo muttered. Izuku opened his eyes. He stared at the sky. He didn't throw the ball with his arm. He stepped forward, snapping his hips with incredible torque. He whipped his arm like a lash. At the very last millisecond, right as the ball left his fingertips, he focused the power into his index and middle finger. Delaware smash. Air Force variant. Snap. The sound was like a gunshot. A cannon blast of compressed air exploded from his fingers. The ball didn't just fly, it vanished. It broke the sound barrier instantly, leaving a ring of vapor in the air above the field. The wind pressure from the throne knocked the dust back, blowing Aizawa's hair back even though his quirk wasn't active. Izuku stood there, his arm extended, smoke curling from his fingers. He flexed his hand. It was red, stinging, but unbroken. Beep. Aizawa looked at the tablet. His eyes widened slightly, a microscopic expression of shock that vanished instantly. He turned the screen to the class. 705.5 meters. He beat Bakugo? Zero gasped. By 0.3 meters. Kaminari yelled. That's petty. That's awesome. Izuku turned to Aizawa. He didn't look triumphant. He looked professional. He held up his hand, wiggling his fingers. Sensei, Izuku said, his voice steady. I'm still standing. And I'm not broken. Aizawa looked at the boy. He looked at the score. Then, slowly, the corners of his mouth crept up into a smile that was equal parts terrifying and impressed. This kid, Aizawa thought. He didn't use brute force. He used precision. He concentrated the power at the point of release to maximize velocity without straining the limb structure. He's not a novice. He's a tactical weapon. DKU. The screen tore through the air. Bakugo launched himself from the crowd. Explosions popped in his palms. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. What the hell was that? Explain yourself, you bastard. He was fast. He was going to kill him. Izuku didn't flinch. He shifted his stance, preparing to intercept. He knew Bakugo's right hook. He had seen it 1,000 times. Duck left, grabbed the wrist pivot, whoosh. Capture tape wrapped around Bakugo, slamming him to the ground and binding his arms to his torso. Gah! What is this cloth? It's stiff. Bakugo struggled, thrashing against the bindings. It's a capture weapon made of carbon fiber and a special metal alloy, Aizawa muttered, holding the other end of the scarf. Stand down. Why are you doing this? Bakugo roared, glaring at Izuku. He's quirkless. He's a pebble. He's cheating. He's not cheating, Aizawa said coldly. He's outperforming you. And you. Aizawa's eyes glowed red again. You're wasting my time. If you use your quirk to attack a student again, I won't just expel you. I'll have your license blacklisted. He released the scarf. Bakugo fell forward, coughing. He looked up at Izuku. Izuku looked down. There was no fear in his green eyes. Only a calm, sad acceptance. I'm not the pebble anymore, Kaken, Izuku whispered. You have to stop looking at who I was, and look at who I am. Bakugo slammed his fist into the dirt, trembling. The results. The sun was setting, casting long orange shadows across the pea grounds. The class gathered around the holographic display. Results, Aizawa announced. Total cumulative score. Izuku looked at the board. 1. Midoriya Izuku. 2. Yayoro Zamomo. 3. Todoroki Shoto. 4. Bakugo Katsuki. 21. Mineta Minoru. Izuku breathed out. First place. Mineta was weeping on the ground. I'm done for. My harem dreams. My future. The class looked at Aizawa nervously. So, is Mineta expelled? Tsuya asked. Aizawa looked at Mineta, then at the class. He scrolled through the data on his tablet. By all rights, Aizawa said, I should expel the bottom scorer. That was the logical ruse. A ruse? The class shouted. However, Aizawa continued, his voice cutting through the relief. I didn't say it was a lie. I said it was a logical ruse to draw out your upper limits. And looking at Mineta's data, he paused. He showed improvement in the grip test after receiving advice. He showed agility in the side steps. He has potential, however marginal, Aizawa sighed, scratching his neck. Nobody is going home today. But don't think you're safe. This was the starting line. If you don't keep up, I will cut you without hesitation next time. He turned to walk away. Pick up a syllabus in the classroom. Class dismissed. As he walked away, Aizawa glanced back one last time. His eyes lingered on Izuku, who was currently being swarmed by Uraraka and Ida. Midoriya Izuku, Aizawa thought. You didn't just survive. You dominated. All Might, you didn't pick a successor. You picked a monster. Aizawa grinned into his scarf. This is going to be a hell of a year. The walk home. That was so scary. Uraraka exhaled, walking beside Izuku. I really thought I was gonna die. But you were amazing, Deku-kun. You got first place. It was close, Izuku said humbly, adjusting his backpack. Yaoyorozu-san was very consistent. And Todoroki-kun, he didn't even seem to be trying hard, and he got third. But you beat Bakugo. Ida noted, walking stiffly on the other side. That seems to be a point of contention. Yeah, Izuku said, looking at his hand. It is. He clenched his fist. He had done it. He had survived the first day. He had faced Aizawa, faced Bakugo, and faced his own doubts, and he had won. Gran Torino, Izuku thought. All Might. I didn't break. As they walked into the sunset, the legend of the green myth was already spreading through the school forums. The first year who one-shot a robot and out-threw the explosive prodigy, Yui had a new standard. And his name was Deku. The afternoon sun filtered through the high windows of Yui High, casting geometric patterns of light and shadow across the desks of Class 1A. The air was thick with the peculiar cocktail of exhaustion and adrenaline that defines the first week of hero training. I am here. The door was thrown open with enough force to rattle the frame. Coming through the door like a normal person, All Might marched into the room, his Silver Age cape billowing as if caught in a personal wind tunnel. He posed at the podium, fists on his hips, his smile blinding. Foundational Hero Studies, he announced, his voice booming from the diaphragm. For this class, we'll be building your hero foundation through various trials. And today, we're jumping right into the deep end. He whipped out a cue card with dramatic flair. Battle Trial, the class erupted. Awesome! Fighting already? Kirishima grinned, hardening his knuckles. Finally, Bakugo muttered, slouching low in his seat, his eyes fixed on the back of Izuku's head. And for that, All Might continued, pressing a button on a remote. You need these. The wall shelves slid open, revealing numbered suitcases. Costumes made based on your quirk registrations and requests you sent in before school started. Get changed and meet me at Ground Beta. From now on, you are all heroes. Izuku looked at the case marked 18. He felt a flutter in his stomach, not of nervousness, but of anticipation. The design he had sent in was specific. It wasn't just a drawing, it was a schematic. He had spent nights analyzing the tensile strength of fabrics, the need for joint support when using full cowling, and the necessity of stealth. He grabbed the case. Time to suit up. Ground Beta, the tunnel entrance. They say the clothes make the man, ladies and gentlemen, and you are all looking very heroic. All Might beamed as the students emerged from the dark tunnel into the simulated city light. The class looked like a colorful explosion of comic book tropes. There were knights in armor, aliens in acid-proof bodysuits, and whatever Aoyama was wearing mostly sparkles. But as the students chatted and complimented each other, a hush fell over the group near the back. Izuku Midoriya stepped into the light. His costume was a departure from the sketches his mother had once cooed over. It was utilitarian. The base was a dark, forest green reinforced bodysuit made of a ballistic weave. Over his torso, he wore a lightweight tactical vest in a lighter teal, padded to absorb impact without hindering mobility. His belt was red, loaded with pouches containing first aid kits and wire spools. On his legs, he wore iron-soled combat boots designed for impact distribution, essential for his kicking style. He wore black knee pads and elbow guards. A metal respirator mask hung loosely around his neck, shaped like a jagged grin, ready to filter toxins or dust. The only nod to his childhood idol was the hood, which had two long, stiffened projections resembling rabbit ears. Or perhaps, All Might's hair tufts. But even these looked aerodynamic rather than cute. "Whoa, Midoriya," Uraraka said, walking up to him. She was wearing a tight pink and black suit that she seemed slightly embarrassed by. "You look really professional." "Function over form," Izuku said, adjusting his gloves. They were white with teal lines, reinforced at the knuckles. Gran Torino, my mentor, insisted that loose fabric is a death sentence at high speeds. How about you, Uraraka-san? The boots look like they have shock absorption for high-altitude landings. Smart. Uraraka blinked, blushing. Oh. Yeah? Totally on purpose. All Might cleared his throat. Now that you're all ready, it's time for combat training. The situation is this. Villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in the hideout. The heroes must try to dispose of it or capture the villains within the time limit. The villains must protect the weapon or capture the heroes. He held up a box. Teams will be decided by lottery. Is that really the best way? Ida asked, raising his hand. He was dressed in full white armor that made him look like a sleek engine. Pros often have to team up with heroes from other agencies on the fly. Izuku answered before All Might could. Adaptability is a core competency. Random pairings simulate emergency response protocols. Exactly, young Midoriya. All Might gave a thumbs up. Now let's draw. The lottery proceeded. Team A, Izuku Midoriya Ochako Uraraka. Team D, Katsuki Bakugo Tenya Ida. Izuku stared at the letter in his hand. Then he looked across the crowd. Bakugo was already looking at him. The explosion boy grinned, a savage, toothy expression that promised violence. He drew a thumb across his throat. First match. All Might shouted. Team A are the heroes. Team D are the villains. Everyone else, head to the monitoring room. As the other students filed out, All Might leaned down to whisper to Izuku. Don't hold back, my boy. But try not to break him too badly. Izuku looked at his teacher. His green eyes were calm, almost chillingly so. I'll do what's necessary, All Might. The planning phase, outside the building. The building was a 5-story concrete complex. The blueprints provided were rudimentary, showing only the outer walls and main stairwells. So, Uraraka said, stretching her arms. She looked nervous. We're up against Bakugo and Ida. Bakugo is scary. And Ida is really fast. Izuku was crouched on the ground, studying the floor plan on a datapad. Kaken isn't just scary, Uraraka-san. He's a combat genius. His reaction times are top tier, and his quirk allows him to change trajectories in midair. But he has a fatal flaw. He's angry? He's arrogant, Izuku corrected. He thinks I'm beneath him. He thinks this is a duel to prove a point. He won't care about the bomb. He won't care about the team. He's coming for me. Izuku stood up, tapping his chin. Ida takes rules seriously. He'll stay with the weapon to guard it. That means for the first few minutes, it'll be a 1v1 downstairs and a 1v1 upstairs if we split up. So we split up? Uraraka asked. No, Izuku said. That's what they expect. Kaken will ambush us at the choke point, probably a hallway or a corner near the entrance. He wants to blow us both away to assert dominance. Izuku turned to her. Here's the plan. We enter through the window on the second floor using your gravity to float me up. We bypass the ground floor entirely. Kaken will be waiting at the front door or the main stairs. When he realizes we aren't there, he'll come hunting. And then, Izuku's eyes narrowed, I'll engage him. You go straight for the weapon. Use the pillars in the room to break Ida's line of sight. If Ida charges you, touch him. If you float him, he loses traction. Without traction, his engines are useless. Got it. Uraraka pumped a fist. Then she paused. But can you handle Bakugo alone? He looked like he wanted to kill you. Izuku pulled his mask up, covering his nose and mouth. His voice came out filtered, metallic and cold. Kaken is fighting a ghost, Uraraka. He's fighting the Deku from middle school. He has no idea who I am now. The villain team, the weapon room. On the 5th floor, in a hollowed-out storage room, a papier-mâché bomb sat in the corner. Bakugo, Ida shouted, waving his arms. We must secure the perimeter. I have cleared the room of loose objects to ensure we have the advantage of terrain. What is your strategy? Bakugo stood by the door, his gauntlets clicking as he adjusted the pins. He didn't look at Ida. I'm going to crush him. Crush who? Midoriya? Ida adjusted his helmet. While he is a formidable variable, our objective is to protect the weapon. Abandoning your post is a violation of the scenario's spirit. Shut up, Four Eyes, Bakugo growled. Smoke curled from his palms. That nerd, he thinks he's better than me. He thinks he can look down on me with those creepy calm eyes. I'm going to show him his place. I'm going to hurt him until he stops standing up. Bakugo kicked the door open and stomped into the hallway. Wait! Bakugo! Ida yelled. Guard the toy. Bakugo spat over his shoulder. I'll handle the trash. Ida sighed, shaking his head. Truly, this is villainous behavior. Very well. If I am to be a villain, I shall be the most diligent villain UA has ever seen. He turned back to the bomb, adopting a menacing pose. Come, heroes. Face the might of Ida Tenya. Hero team, enter. All Might's voice echoed over the loudspeakers. Inside the building, silence reigned. Bakugo stalked the second-floor hallway. He had expected them to come through the front door. He had waited there for 30 seconds. Nothing. Did they flank? The back entrance? He moved up the stairs, his ears straining for the sound of footsteps. Nothing. He reached the third floor. A long corridor stretched out before him, lined with pillars and dark alcoves. Come out, DKU! Bakugo roared. Don't hide, you coward! Step. A soft sound. Behind him, Bakugo spun around, his right hand priming an explosion. Izuku stood at the other end of the hallway, 20 meters away. He stood perfectly still, hands hanging loosely at his sides. The green bunny-eared hood was up, casting a shadow over his eyes. Found you, Bakugo hissed. A grin split his face. I was worried you'd run away. I'm not running, Kaken. Izuku's voice was calm, amplified slightly by the mask. I'm intercepting. Intercept this. Bakugo launched himself. He didn't run. He used his explosions to propel himself through the air, a human missile of heat and kinetic energy. He closed the 20 meters in a second. Right hook! Bakugo screamed, swinging his gauntlet fist. The explosion detonated. A massive cloud of smoke and fire filled the corridor. The walls shook. Got him, Bakugo thought. He felt the heat. He felt the impact. Wait, he didn't feel the impact. He felt air. The smoke cleared. Izuku wasn't there. Too wide, a voice whispered. Bakugo's eyes widened. He looked up. Izuku was on the ceiling. He had jumped, planted his feet on the concrete overhead, and was sticking there for a split second using the friction of his soles and the upward pressure of One for All. Before Bakugo could react, Izuku dropped. He didn't punch. He landed behind Bakugo, grabbed the back of his collar and his belt, and used Bakugo's own forward momentum against him. Judoka throw. Izuku pivoted. Bakugo's world spun. He was slammed into the concrete floor with a bone-rattling thud. Gah! The air left Bakugo's lungs. Izuku didn't stop. He hopped back 3 meters, creating space. Bakugo scrambled up, coughing. His eyes were bloodshot with rage. You bastard! You mocked me. I analyzed you, Izuku said. Green lightning began to flicker around his body. Low voltage, barely audible. Full cowling, 5%. You always open with a right swing. It's a habit. You rely on the explosion to cover your blind spots. But if I move faster than the ignition... Shut up! Bakugo fired again. This time, he didn't swing. He unleashed a barrage of blasts, filling the hallway with fire. He was destroying the walls, the floor, everything. I'll blow you to pieces. In the observation room, the class gasped. This is crazy. Kaminari yelled. Bakugo's gonna kill him. Midoriya can't dodge that much area of effect. Kirishima shouted. On the screen, amidst the fire and smoke, a green shadow moved. Izuku wasn't dodging away. He was dodging through. Gran Torino's training was hell. It consisted of moving through a room filled with bouncing microwave-sized hardened rubber balls moving at Mach 1. Izuku had learned to see the gaps in the chaos. Bakugo's explosions had gaps. The intervals between blasts were 0.8 seconds. Izuku wove through the fire. He ducked under a left hook. He sidestepped a blast that singed his shoulder pad. He moved like water flowing around rocks. He was inside Bakugo's guard. Bakugo's eyes widened in genuine shock. He's inside? Detroit. Izuku murmured. Bakugo braced for a punch to the gut. He hardened his abs. He prepared to tank it and counterblast. Izuku feinted. He didn't punch. His fist stopped an inch from Bakugo's stomach. The wind pressure ruffled Bakugo's shirt. Instead of striking, Izuku's other hand whipped out. He held a roll of capture tape. Zip. Zip. Click. In one fluid motion, Izuku wrapped the tape around Bakugo's right gauntlet, looped it around his torso, and pinned the arm to his side. What? Izuku swept Bakugo's legs. Bakugo hit the ground again. This time, Izuku was on top of him instantly. He wrapped the tape around Bakugo's left wrist, then his ankles. It took 3 seconds. Bakugo lay on the ground, trussed up like a turkey. He struggled, screaming, firing explosions from his palms that only scorched his own sides because his arms were pinned. Let me go! Fight me! Izuku stood up. He looked down at Bakugo. There was no triumph in his eyes. Only a quiet disappointment. This isn't a playground fight, Kaken, Izuku said. He tapped his earpiece. Uraraka-san. The obstacle is neutralized. Proceed to the objective. You. Bakugo stopped struggling. He stared up at Izuku. You're ignoring me? I'm winning, Izuku said. You focused on the fight. I focused on the war. He turned his back on Bakugo. Don't turn your back on me. Bakugo screamed, tears of frustration pricking his eyes. Use your quirk. Fight me with your power. Izuku paused. He looked over his shoulder. I just did. Then, in a blur of green light, Izuku vanished up the stairwell. The observation room. Silence. Absolute, heavy silence. Mineta's mouth was hanging open. He took down Bakugo? Without even punching him? It wasn't just a takedown, Yaoyorozu Momo said, her voice trembling slightly. She was clutching her notebook. It was a dismantling. Bakugo relies on intimidation and overwhelming force. Midoriya didn't engage with that. He used minimal effort to achieve maximum result. He read him like a book, Sato muttered. Bakugo couldn't land a single hit. All Might watched the screen, his hands gripping the podium so hard the metal was warping. He held back. All Might realized. He could have knocked young Bakugo unconscious with a single 5% smash. But he chose restraint. He chose capture. That is the mark of a pro. Look! Tokoyami pointed at the screen. Midoriya is ascending. He's heading for Ida. The weapon room 5th floor. Uraraka-kun is late, Ida muttered, pacing. Perhaps Bakugo defeated Midoriya? No, I heard explosions, but no comms update. I must remain vigilant. Suddenly, the wall to his left exploded. Smash! Debris flew everywhere. Ida raised his arms to shield his face. A frontal assault? From the dust, Uraraka charged out. Sorry, Ida-kun. Ha! Foolish hero. Ida laughed, activating his engines. I expected this. Your floating quirk requires touch. I shall not let you get close. Ida zoomed backward, putting the bomb between him and Uraraka. I have cleared the room. You have nothing to float to use as projectiles. I don't need projectiles, Uraraka shouted. I just need a distraction. Distraction? Ida paused. Ping, a small sound. Like a coin hitting the floor. Ida looked down. A flash grenade canister rolled between his feet. What? Flash. Blinding white light filled the room. Ida cried out, blinded, stumbling back. My eyes! A cheap trick. Now! Uraraka yelled. Through the ringing in his ears, Ida heard a sound that chilled his oil-filled veins. The sound of air being torn apart. Whoosh! The window on the opposite side of the room shattered inward. Not from an explosion, but from a kick. Izuku Midoriya was there. He had scaled the outside of the building. Ida-kun! Izuku shouted. Ida swung blindly. Recipro burst. He kicked out at the sound. His leg moved at supersonic speeds, but Izuku wasn't there anymore. He had used the window frame to vault over Ida's head. Ida felt the wind of Izuku passing him. Secure. Izuku landed on the papier-mâché bomb, crouching on top of it like a gargoyle. He tapped the surface with his hand. Hero team wins. All Might's voice boomed over the speaker. The flash faded. Ida blinked, his vision clearing. He saw Uraraka giving a thumbs up by the door, and Izuku sitting casually on the weapon, unwinding the capture tape he hadn't needed to use. Ida fell to his knees. I was completely outmaneuvered. Izuku hopped down. He offered a hand to Ida. You did good, Ida-kun, Izuku said earnestly. Clearing the room was smart against Uraraka. But you forgot to secure the windows against vertical entry. Ida looked at the hand. He took it. Vertical entry, on the 5th floor? You are a monster, Midoriya-kun. Izuku smiled beneath his mask. I'm just a hero. The review. The class stood in the monitoring room. The atmosphere was different now. Before, Izuku was the guy with the cool score. Now, he was something else. Bakugo stood in the corner, leaning against the wall. He was still shaking. He hadn't said a word since All Might untied him. Well, All Might coughed, trying to break the tension. An excellent first match. Now, who can tell me who the MVP of this battle was? It was Midoriya, Yaoyorozu said instantly, raising her hand. Explain. It is simple, she began, her eyes flicking to Izuku. Midoriya formulated a strategy that utilized his teammate's quirk for mobility while he acted as the vanguard. He predicted his opponent's psychological state, Bakugo's aggression, and used it to create a trap. She pointed at the screen showing the hallway. During the combat, Midoriya caused 0 structural damage. Bakugo destroyed half the corridor. Midoriya neutralized the threat non-lethally and efficiently. Then, he coordinated a synchronized breach with Uraraka using a flashbang, which I assume he had in his utility belt, to disorient Ida. She took a breath. He acted with the situational awareness of a veteran. Bakugo acted out of a grudge. Ida was too passive. Uraraka followed orders well, but the architect of the victory was undeniably Midoriya. Exactly. All Might sweated. She's scary. She said everything I wanted to say but better. Midoriya, Tsuyu croaked, tapping her chin. Where did you learn to fight like that? You moved like a pro. I had a good teacher, Izuku said, looking at his gloves. He taught me that power is useless if you can't apply it to the situation. Smashing everything only works if you're All Might. I'm not All Might, so I have to be smarter. Bakugo flinched at those words. I'm not All Might. For years, Bakugo thought Deku was trying to be All Might. But watching him today, Deku wasn't imitating anyone. He was fighting his own way. A way Bakugo couldn't understand. The aftermath sunset, the school day ended. Students were filing out, chatting excitedly about the battles. Izuku walked toward the gate. He felt a hand on his shoulder. Midoriya. It was Todoroki Shoto. The dual-haired boy looked at him with cold, heterochromatic eyes. You're strong, Todoroki said flatly. Thanks, Izuku replied. But you're holding back, Todoroki accused. I saw the entrance exam. You have power that breaks buildings. Today you used, what? 5%? Izuku stiffened. Control is harder than power, Todoroki-kun. My old man is watching you, Todoroki said cryptically. He says your power is nostalgic. I'm going to beat you, Midoriya. With just my ice. I reject his power, and I'll reject yours too. Todoroki walked away. Izuku watched him go. Internal drama. Great. Just what I need. DKU. The shout was ragged. Izuku turned. Bakugo stood at the school entrance. He looked wrecked. His eyes were red-rimmed, his hair messy. He wasn't vibrating with anger anymore. He was trembling with something closer to despair. You! Bakugo choked out. You were laughing at me. I wasn't, Izuku said. You didn't use your smash. You wrapped me up like a bug. You looked bored, damn it! Bakugo screamed, clutching his chest. Am I that weak to you? Am I just a pebble now? Izuku walked closer. He stopped 3 feet from Bakugo. You're not weak, Kaken. You're incredibly strong. Your quirk is amazing. Your instincts are sharp. Then why? Because you're fighting for yourself, Izuku said softly. You want to win to prove you're the best. To stroke your ego. Izuku tapped his own chest. I'm not fighting to be the best, Kaken. I'm fighting to save people. When you fight a villain, you don't show off. You end it. Fast. Clean. Safe. Izuku looked Bakugo in the eye. The gap between us isn't power. It's perspective. Until you stop trying to be the main character and start trying to be a hero, you'll never catch me. Izuku turned and walked away into the sunset. Bakugo stood there, the words echoing in his skull. He wanted to scream. He wanted to blast Deku in the back. But he couldn't. Because deep down, in the place he hated to look, he knew the nerd was right. And that hurt more than any punch ever could. Teacher's lounge. All Might sat on the sofa, deflated, holding a cup of tea. He's growing too fast, All Might murmured. He's leaving the others behind. That's a good thing, Aizawa said from his desk, not looking up from his paperwork. Iron sharpens iron. Bakugo needed to break. Now we see if he can rebuild himself. And the others, they see Midoriya as the summit. Aizawa glanced at the file on his desk. It was the schedule for the upcoming week. Wednesday, rescue training at the USJ. Midoriya is a catalyst, Aizawa said. He's going to change the chemistry of this class. Let's just hope the villains don't realize how dangerous he is before he's ready. The lights in the room flickered. Outside, in the shadows of the city, a blue-haired man scratched his neck, staring at a photo of All Might. Game over soon, Shigaraki Tamura whispered. But first, let's test the waters. The bus ride to the unforeseen simulation joint, the USJ, was a boisterous affair. The tension of the first week had begun to bleed away, replaced by the camaraderie of shared trauma under Aizawa's iron-fisted curriculum. Izuku sat near the front, staring out the window at the passing greenery. He wasn't participating in the banter, but he was listening. His mind was a constant hum of analysis, processing the quirks of his classmates, their personalities, and their potential synergies. Midoriya-chan, Seer Azuri said, her voice croaking softly from the seat next to him. I say everything that comes to mind. Your quirk resembles All Might's. The bus went quiet. It was the elephant in the room that everyone had noticed but no one had voiced. The raw power. The wind pressure. The self-destructive potential that Izuku had seemingly bypassed through sheer technique. Izuku turned, his expression unreadable. It does, he admitted smoothly. It's a power stockpiling type. All Might is the summit of that category. It's natural there would be similarities in the output manifestation. But All Might doesn't turn into green lightning, Kirishima piped up from the back, leaning over his seat. And he doesn't fight like you, man. You fight like... I don't know. Like a ninja or something. All Might is a hammer. You're like a scalpel. A scalpel, Izuku repeated, testing the word. I like that. A hammer breaks everything around the nail. A scalpel just removes the tumor. That's kinda dark, dude. Kaminari laughed. It's efficient, Bakugo grunted from the very back seat. He was looking out the window, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. If you waste energy, you die. That's the logic. The class stared at Bakugo. It was the most sensible thing he'd said all week. We're here. Aizawa's tired voice cut through the chatter. The bus hissed to a halt. The USJ was a marvel of engineering. A massive dome that simulated every disaster known to man. Fires, floods, landslides, typhoons. Standing at the entrance was the space hero, 13. As 13 launched into a passionate speech about the lethality of quirks and the responsibility of power, Izuku felt a prickle on the back of his neck. It wasn't a quirk. It was instinct. The same instinct Gran Torino had beaten into him with a wooden cane every time Izuku let his guard down. The air changed, Izuku thought. The humidity spiked. Something is wrong. Teachy types sure love to talk, Aizawa sighed, scratching his neck. Where is All Might? He was supposed to meet us here. He's resting, 13 whispered, holding up 3 fingers. He overdid it on his commute. Izuku's eyes narrowed. All Might is out of time. We are exposed. Then, the lights flickered. A sound like tearing fabric echoed through the massive dome. In the center of the plaza, near the fountain, A black void spiraled into existence. It expanded, purple mist bleeding into reality. A hand reached out. Then a face, covered by a severed hand. The censors. Aizawa muttered, his eyes widening. 13. Protect the students. Is this the scenario? Kirishima asked, squinting. Like surprise villains? Don't move! Aizawa shouted, his voice cracking with genuine urgency. He snapped his goggles over his eyes. Those are real villains. Panic rippled through the class. Real villains? Here? In the fortress of Ue? Izuku stepped forward to the edge of the stairs. He didn't tremble. He activated One for All, the green electricity sparking instantly, illuminating the dark stairwell. Sensei, Izuku said, his voice cutting through the fear. The mist. It's a warp gate. That means they have a way to bypass the school barrier. They aren't a random mob. This is a hit squad. Aizawa looked at Izuku. Analysis later. 13. Evacuation protocol. Kaminari, try the comms. I'm going down, Aizawa declared, his scarf floating around him. You can't fight them all, Izuku argued, stepping closer to the edge. There are dozens. Your quirk is for erasure, not crowd control. You're a specialist, not a brawler. You can't be a hero with just one trick, Aizawa snapped. Stay back, Midoriya. Aizawa leaped. Izuku watched him fall, watched him engage the first wave of villains. Aizawa was incredible, fluid, brutal, efficient. But Izuku's eyes weren't on his teacher. They were fixed on the man covered in hands, and the massive, bird-beaked creature standing motionless beside him. That bird thing, it's not moving. It's not reacting to the noise. It's waiting. I'm afraid, a cultured, smoky voice drifted from the air itself, that we cannot allow you to leave. The purple mist had materialized in front of the students, blocking the exit. Kurogyri. We are the League of Villains, the mist intoned. We have come to extinguish the symbol of peace. Bakugo and Kirishima lunged. Bet you didn't count on us. Explosions and hardened fists slammed into the mist. Nothing happened. Begone, Kurogyri whispered. The mist expanded, swallowing the class. Izuku felt the warp overtake him. Gravity inverted. The world spun. Don't panic, his mind screamed. Orient yourself. Prepare for impact. The flood zone. Izuku hit the water hard. The cold shock was instantaneous. He was submerged. He opened his eyes, the salt stinging. Below him, dark shapes were moving fast. Villains with aquatic quirks. They were grinning, swimming upward like sharks sensing blood. Terrain, deep water. Advantage, enemy. Objective, surface and secure. Izuku didn't swim. He kicked. Detroit smash. He thought, but modified it. He snapped his fingers underwater. Air Force, depth charge. The pressure wave exploded from his hand. It didn't just push the water, it cavitated it. A bubble of vacuum expanded and collapsed instantly, sending a shockwave through the liquid. The three villains approaching him were blasted backward, their eardrums ruptured by the hydrostatic pressure. Izuku rocketed to the surface, breaching like a dolphin. He landed on the deck of a sinking ship in the middle of the lake. Midoriya-chan! Midoriya! Tsuyu Ajiri and Mineta Minoru were already there. Tsuyu was calm. Mineta was hyperventilating, throwing his purple balls into the water in a blind panic. We're gonna die. We're gonna die. Mineta shrieked. Those are real villains. I haven't even touched a boob yet. Mineta, shut up, Izuku commanded. The tone wasn't angry. It was absolute. It was the voice of someone in charge. Mineta froze, snot bubbling from his nose. Izuku scanned the water. The villains he had stunned were recovering. More were gathering. The ship was surrounded. Ajiri-san, Izuku said, not looking at her. What's your max jump distance with a passenger? Call me Tsuyu, she corrected automatically. And about 20 meters, maybe more if I push it. But there are too many of them, Karo. We aren't running, Izuku said. He walked to the railing. We're clearing the zone. Clearing? Mineta screamed. Are you crazy? Look at them. There's a shark guy. They are low-level thugs, Izuku analyzed. They grouped us by quirk types they assumed we had, or just randomized it. They don't know our capabilities. But they know the terrain. They think they've trapped us. Izuku looked at Mineta. Mineta. Your quirk. The balls stick to anything, right? Yeah, but, and they stick to each other? Yeah? And they float? Mineta blinked. I think so? Izuku turned to the water. He held his hand out. One for all hummed at 10%. Throw them, Izuku ordered. Not at the villains. Into the water. Spread them out. Create a minefield. But why? Just do it. Izuku roared. Mineta flinched, then started frantically pulling balls off his head and chucking them into the lake. Take this. And this, the villains laughed. Look at that. Toy balls. They're panicking. A villain with a squid head surfaced. Let's sink the boat and eat them. Izuku waited. The water around the ship was dotted with purple spheres. See you, Izuku said. Grab Mineta. Get ready to jump to the shore on my signal. What are you going to do, Midoriya-chan? Izuku climbed onto the railing. He took a deep breath. He channeled power into his middle finger. Not 10%. Not 20%. He needed displacement. 100%. Pain flared in his mind before he even released it, but he suppressed it. He didn't need to punch a person. He needed to punch the ocean. Smash! He flicked his finger downward at the center of the cluster of balls. The atmospheric pressure hit the water like a meteor. The lake split. A massive depression formed, forcing the water outward in a violent tsunami. Whoa! The villains screamed as they were churned into a chaotic whirlpool. The water rushed back in to fill the void, creating a massive vortex. The villains were sucked into the center. And in that center were Mineta's sticky balls. Squelch. Smack. Stick. The villains collided with each other, and the spheres. Within seconds, a grotesque ball of 30 villains, all glued together, bobbed helplessly in the center of the zone. Now! Izuku yelled, clutching his broken finger. Tsuyu wrapped her tongue around Izuku and grabbed Mineta, launching them into the air. They soared over the trapped villains and landed in the shallows of the shore zone. Mineta looked back at the ball of villains. I did that. We did that, Izuku said, gritting his teeth against the pain in his finger. He quickly taped it up with a roll from his belt. Zone secured. We should head to the exit, Tsuyu suggested. Izuku looked toward the central plaza. He could see flashes of movement. He saw Aizawa's capture scarf whipping through the air. But he also saw the man with the hands, Shigaraki, creeping closer, counting down. Izuku saw the pattern. Aizawa's hair was dropping more frequently. His blink duration was increasing. He was exhausted. Sensei is going to die, Izuku said flatly. What? Tsuyu gasped. He's a capture hero fighting an attrition war, Izuku explained, checking his boots. And that bird monster hasn't moved yet. It's the ace. If Aizawa engages the leader, the ace will strike. Izuku turned to his classmates. Get to the entrance. Help the others. I'm going to the plaza. Midoriya, no! Mineta grabbed his leg. You're just a student. Izuku looked down. His eyes were glowing with a terrifying green luminescence. If I don't go, Izuku whispered, there won't be a teacher left to save. He kicked off the ground. A sonic boom cracked the air. He was gone. The central plaza. Shota Aizawa was tiring. His eyes burned like they were full of sand. His muscles screamed. He had taken down 20 villains, breaking bones and rendering them unconscious, but they kept coming. And the man in the center, Shigaraki, was just watching. Scratching his neck. 23 seconds, Shigaraki muttered. 24 seconds. Your intervals are getting longer, Eraserhead. Aizawa ducked a pipe swung by a thug, sweeping the man's legs. He panted heavily. Shigaraki rushed him. He was fast. Faster than he looked. Aizawa's hair fell. His quirk deactivated for a split second. Shigaraki's hand reached for Aizawa's face. Game over. Aizawa tried to pull back, but his momentum was wrong. He couldn't dodge. He braced for the decay. Wham! A green blur slammed into Shigaraki's side. It wasn't a punch. It was a dropkick, delivered with the force of a speeding car. Shigaraki was launched sideways, tumbling across the concrete. Aizawa blinked. Standing in front of him, green lightning arcing off his shoulders, was his problem child. Midoriya! Aizawa barked. I told you to leave. Tactical reassessment, Izuku said, not looking back. He fell into a combat stance, guarding Aizawa. You're compromised. Your blink interval is up to 2 seconds. You can't maintain the front line. Shigaraki stood up slowly. He dusted off his black shirt. The hand covering his face had shifted slightly, revealing a manic, bloodshot eye. A child? Shigaraki rasped. He scratched his neck violently. A mob character hurt me? That's not in the script. That's a bug. We need a patch. He pointed at Izuku. Noma, the bird creature moved. It didn't run. It vanished. 1 second it was by the fountain. The next, it was in front of Izuku. A massive fist, the size of Izuku's head, was descending. Izuku didn't try to block. Analysis. Speed is hypersonic. Mass is immense. Blocking equals death. Izuku dropped. He went completely limp, falling flat onto his back. The fist passed inches above his nose, the wind pressure cracking the concrete beneath him. From the ground, Izuku kicked upward. Both feet slammed into the Noma's chin. One for all, 15% impact. The Noma's head snapped back. It stumbled. Izuku kicked up, grabbed Aizawa's scarf, and yanked the teacher backward just as the Noma's second fist pulverized the spot where they had been standing. It's fast! Izuku yelled, sliding back. And heavy. It took a 15% kick to the chin and didn't even flinch. It's the anti-all might, Shigaraki giggled. Shock absorption. Regeneration. You can't beat it, little hero. Shock absorption. Izuku's mind raced. That means blunt force is ineffective unless it exceeds the absorption threshold. I can't hit that hard without breaking myself. I need to immobilize it. Ice. Izuku shouted. A massive glacier erupted from the right. Shoto Todoroki had arrived, freezing the Noma's right side. Explosion! Katsuki Bakugo came from the sky, blasting the Noma's face. Kirishima! Protect Aizawa-sensei! Izuku ordered. The class's heavy hitters had gathered. They looked to Izuku. Not consciously, perhaps, but in the chaos, he was the one giving orders. Don't let it move! Izuku commanded. Todoroki, keep freezing the joints. Kaken, disorient its sensors, eyes and ears. It's mindless, it reacts to stimuli. Don't tell me what to do, Deku! Bakugo screamed, but he blasted the Noma's eyes anyway. The Noma roared. It flexed, shattering Todoroki's ice. Its arm, which had been frozen, crumbled away, and then regenerated instantly. Regeneration too? Todoroki narrowed his eyes. This is bad. The Noma lunged at Bakugo. Kaken, duck! Izuku screamed. Izuku didn't wait. He grabbed a piece of concrete debris and threw it. Delaware smash. The air bullet hit the Noma's shoulder, knocking it slightly off course. The claw missed Bakugo by a millimeter. Izuku landed beside Bakugo. We can't kill it. We have to contain it. Todoroki, can you freeze it to the core? I need time, Todoroki said. And I need it to stop moving. I'll make it stop, Izuku said. He looked at the Noma. The beast towered over him. Ready? Izuku asked. You're gonna get yourself killed, nerd, Bakugo spat, sparks flying from his palms. Just cover me, Izuku charged. He moved in a zigzag pattern, bouncing off the fountain, the debris, the ground. He was a green pinball. The Noma swung wildly, destroying the plaza, but Izuku was too small, too fast. Gran Torino Lesson 5. If you can't hit harder, hit faster. Overload the reaction time. Izuku got inside the Noma's guard. He grabbed the creature's arm. He couldn't lift it. So he spun around it, using the limb as a fulcrum to swing himself up onto the Noma's back. Now! Todoroki! Izuku wrapped his legs around the Noma's neck in a triangle choke. It was futile for strangulation, but it blinded the creature. Todoroki unleashed a wave of ice. The Nomu, blinded and thrashing with Izuku on its back, was caught. The ice encased its legs, then its waist. Get off, Deku! Bakugo yelled, firing an AP shot at the Noma's chest to drive it back into the ice. Izuku backflipped off just as the ice swallowed the Noma's head. Silence fell over the plaza. Did we get it? Kirishima asked, helping Aizawa up. No, Izuku whispered. He could feel the vibration in the floor. Crack. The ice sculpture shattered. The Nomu exploded out, screeching. It looked undamaged. Cheats, Shigaraki sighed. You kids are using cheats. Nomu, kill the green one. He's annoying. The Nomu vanished. Izuku barely had time to process it. The fist was in his gut. Guh! The air left his body. He was launched backward, skipping across the water of the fountain like a stone, slamming into the stairs leading to the entrance. Midoriya! Uraraka screamed from the top of the stairs. Izuku lay in the rubble. His vision swam. His ribs were definitely cracked. He coughed, tasting copper. Get up, he told himself. If you stay down, everyone dies. The Nomu was charging him. A freight train of muscle and malice. Izuku forced himself to his knees. He channeled one for all. 5%? Number 10%? Not enough. Screw the limits. He stood up. The green lightning turned white. His skin turned red. One for all, 20%. His bones creaked under the strain. The Nomu was 10 meters away. 5. Then, boom. The entrance doors were blown off their hinges. Dust billowed out. A massive silhouette stood in the doorway. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't striking a pose. He looked furious. I am here! All Might roared, his voice shaking the dome. But he didn't stop there. In a blink, he was in the plaza. He stripped off his jacket. I am sorry, Aizawa. I am sorry, students. I was late. All Might looked at Izuku, battered and bleeding at the bottom of the stairs. His blue eyes glowed with a terrifying light. Young Midoriya. Rest now. I will handle this, All Might. Izuku wheezed. He wiped the blood from his mouth. Shock absorption. Regeneration. Physical attacks don't work. I see. All Might turned to the Nomu. Then I will simply have to hit it until it stops working. The clash of titans began. All Might and the Nomu collided in the center of the plaza. The shockwave shattered the remaining glass in the dome. It was a brawl of pure power. Punches were thrown at speeds the eye couldn't track. Carolina smash. The Nomu took it. It hit back. All Might slid backward, digging trenches in the concrete. He's pushing All Might back? Mineta whimpered. All Might is getting weaker, Izuku realized. He's past his limit. He's bleeding steam. Shigaraki laughed. You can't beat him, All Might. He was made to kill you. The Nomu grabbed All Might's sides, digging its claws into his weak spot, the injury. All Might grunted in pain. Let go of him. Izuku moved. He didn't listen to the order to rest. He ignored the pain in his ribs. He sprinted down the stairs. 20% full cowling. Bakugo. Todoroki. Cover fire. Izuku screamed into the comms. He didn't wait for an answer. He knew they would follow. They were heroes. An explosion rocked the Noma's head. Ice spiked its legs. The Noma flinched, its grip loosening on All Might for a microsecond. That was all Izuku needed. He didn't aim for the Noma. He aimed for the air behind the Noma. He jumped, flipping over the grappling pair. He spun in midair. Texas smash. Assist. Izuku kicked the air behind the Nomu, creating a massive vacuum wave that pulled the creature backward, destabilizing its stance. All Might felt the shift. He saw the boy flying above him. He saw the tactical opening Izuku had created. Young Midoriya. All Might grinned, blood leaking from his teeth. Do it now! Izuku screamed, landing and bracing himself against the wind pressure. All Might wound up. Plus. Ultra! He delivered a punch that transcended his limits. It hit the Nomu in the gut. The shock absorption overloaded. The creature was launched, not just away, but up. Through the ceiling. Into the stratosphere. It twinkled like a star. Silence returned to the USJ. All Might stood in the center of the crater, steam pouring off his body. He was trembling. He was at his limit. He couldn't move. Shigaraki scratched his neck furiously. He cheated. He used a support character. That kid, that damn kid. Shigaraki ran forward. If I can't kill All Might, I'll kill the kid. He lunged at Izuku, who was kneeling, exhausted. All Might couldn't move. No! Bang! 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 3 shots rang out. Shigaraki fell, bullets in his legs and hand. Sorry we're late, a cowboy voice drawled from the entrance. Snipe stood there with the rest of the UA faculty. Game over, Shigaraki whispered. The purple mist enveloped him. We'll be back, and next time, the green myth dies first. They vanished. The aftermath. The police had arrived. Students were being wrapped in blankets. Izuku sat on the bumper of an ambulance. A paramedic was wrapping his ribs. Midoriya, Uraraka and Ida ran over. They were crying. You were reckless! Ida scolded, chopping the air, tears streaming down his face. But you were magnificent. You saved Aizawa-sensei, Uraraka sobbed. Izuku winced as the medic tightened the bandage. I just bought time. All Might did the heavy lifting. Don't be modest, a gruff voice said. Detective Tsukachi Naomasa walked over. He held a notepad. Eraserhead is in critical condition, but stable. The doctors say that if he had taken one more hit from that creature, his skull would have been crushed. You intervened at the exact second necessary. Tsukachi looked at Izuku with a gaze usually reserved for pros. And the water zone. We fished out 30 villains wrapped in a ball. They're all suffering from minor concussions and motion sickness. Efficient. Brutal. But bloodless. Izuku nodded. They were just foot soldiers. You commanded the defense, Tsukachi noted. We have statements from Azuri Tsuyu, Mineta Minoru, and even Bakugo Katsuki. They all stated that they moved on your orders. Izuku looked at his hands. They were shaking now. The adrenaline was fading. I couldn't watch them die. That, Tsukachi smiled, tipping his hat, is why you're going to be a hell of a hero, kid. UA High the next day. The atmosphere in the school had shifted. When Izuku walked down the hallway, people didn't just look, they stared. The rumors had spread. The first years had fought real villains, and one student had stood toe-to-toe with a monster that could fight All Might. Izuku opened the door to Class 1A. The chatter stopped. Kirishima jumped up. Midoriya! You're back. How are the ribs? Fractured, Izuku said, walking to his desk. But Recovery Girl fixed the worst of it. Just sore.